Welcome back, everybody. As you can tell, today we have some of the, the abilities or the skills from Wretched Rose. If I'm not mistaken, you can get all this information from the preview skills or the preview of the next unit that's coming up in the summon banner location for epicseven. But obviously, because it's already been posted on Reddit, we'll just use this to kind of break down and kind of go over some of these skills, or rather all the skills that have been announced for Wretched Rose. Without further ado though, let's get into it. So first and foremost, as you guys rightfully mentioned in the last video, yes, there is a Shadow Rose, which again, I guess it kind of makes sense for why there isn't another Dark Rose. However, being a light Soul Weaver and called Wretched Rose with the sword is still probably one of the most unusual or unexpected routes that they could have taken this, especially with her darker kind of color scheme. In any case though, let's break down each of the skills and the abilities, as these are pretty game changing or pretty different. So the first ability is known as Once in a Lifetime Research that we'll go over. And this essentially has two effects to it, which is a bit complicated, but let's just kind of read through. So before the enhancement, you dispel all the debuffs from all allies except for the caster, and you recover health before then applying or granting a barrier for 2 turns. And this scales specifically with the caster's max HP. Now, this will also grant solution to the caster and decrease the skill cooldowns of the caster for 2 or by 2 turns. However, once or if you have the enhancement or the enhanced version, you instead use time reversal to all allies except for the caster, and also grants a barrier, same as before, for 2 turns. Now, the reason why this is so crazy is because, well, we kind of have to, go over some of the abilities or the labels here. Solution specifically enhances the next Once in a Lifetime Research, which is the skill 3. And essentially what this means is that or at least from what I understand, the first S3 will not do this, but the second S3 will revert basically the state of the game, or rather the state of your allies, to the beginning of the battle, at least from the way that I'm understanding. And again, this effect also remains even after reviving. Now, the reason why this is so crazy is because though you may think that this is, well, first and foremost, just to be clear, this isn't like a complete reversal, like not everyone revives back and, all this random nonsense, but rather what this is that at least initially, this seems like injury, like skill cooldowns, things like this will go back to the very beginning or will reset from the very start. And this is obviously very powerful because we haven't technically had a true anti-injury sort of answer or introduction to a concept like that in the game yet. However, what's even more interesting actually about this ability, and as people have kind of mentioned, is that as far as I understand, and again, this is a bit of speculation, we'll have to see once we actually get into or see this from, once the game or, once this actually comes out. As far as I understand, you may be able to use this to apply beginning of battle effects to start off the game again as well. And this might mean that for someone like Genesis Roz, for instance, his buff, or any character that is given a buff at the start of turn, or at the start of battle rather, will receive these one-time, otherwise unique or singular instance buffs or effects at the start of combat. And now you can actually reapply or get this to activate again, which is absolutely ridiculous, obviously, because some of those beginning of battle effects are pretty crazy. Now, I do want to say that in terms of this, because it is a 7-turn cooldown, and even despite the decreased cooldown by 2 turns, this is still kind of interesting, I guess, but it isn't necessarily the most insane, or it is like a rather long cooldown. So whether or not you'll actually be able to get to this time reversal, again, is kind of up for debate. I could certainly see how people may end up using things to reduce the cooldown of this. However, it looks pretty crazy. As far as I understand as well, this, I don't believe, is something that you can avoid, or rather, I don't think this is something that is affected by the old past previous nerf to Candlestick, if this is something where you want to get even more cooldown. That said, this isn't the only ability that we actually have to go over, as again, there are other abilities, but just this ability alone is pretty crazy. And the next one that we should actually talk about is skill 2. Now, as if reverting or healing and reverting time back to the beginning is not already a crazy enough concept of a character, the skill 2 here also reads that at the start of battle, you grant increased critical hit resistance to all allies for 2 turns, and upon reviving, you revive with 30% health, or upon dying, you then revive with 30% health. I believe this should be the max. If not, it could be that you revive with 50%. I'm assuming it's going to be half, or it could be different. It is what it is. In any case, 30 or 50% health, obviously having some sort of critical hit resistance, and honestly probably being a soul weaver that will probably have, I don't know, something like soul constellation or some ER focused combat readiness stealing artifact is going to be pretty massive for Wretched Rose. Even before we look into the skill 1, again, just this barrier, the healing, the complete dispel of all debuff from all allies, you know, granting yourself solution, reverting time back, all these are already insane. And mind you, again, this is not like a dual double-edged sword type of effect where like the enemy team also gets, you know, like affected in like a positive way, or you are also negatively impacted by this buff. This is a positive, or at least from what I understand, a mostly positive buff, though of course we don't exactly know how it works in game, so it is what it is. We'll hold off before making super hard judgments, but just by the S3 and S2 alone, this looks absolutely ridiculous. If you're playing rather slow or somehow able to play around like an Arunca, I could definitely imagine people stalling out games super heavily. And again, even for someone like Arunca as well, if for whatever reason, like, you're debuffed or you're unbuffable with Arunca and you can't get that buff back, well, I guess it doesn't really matter because she'd get it at the start of turn anyways, but you get what I mean. Like, you can kind of cook this thing up. You have critical hit resistance, you have reverting, like the healing, the buffs, and all these things are pretty ridiculous. But then we have our skill 1, which is, I don't know, this is just the icing on the cake, guys. So this is basically Soul Weaver stealth. So this is a bit goofy, I would say. Now, obviously, the idea behind this is that you're supposed to, or I guess going to try to hide your Rose so that she doesn't die. And then you could maybe make her really fast with like a lot of ER or HP and then try to cycle her skill 3 back. But either way, she has an extra turn soul burn, which is obviously pretty good. And I'm sure that people can use something like that one pipsqueak artifact, the one that gives you souls, if you want to be able to use the extra souls here. If you end up using something like, I don't know, like a mage, or you end up bringing mages alongside Wretched Rose, if you end up using the Lunas or the Ludwigs or the anything in the world, I could even imagine this being a character that you cleave with. But all these, like, I don't necessarily, again, want to say that all these aspects of her kit seem like so inherently broken, like, oh my god, this is the second coming of Harsetti. But like, in terms of a creative character, this is easily one of the most creative characters that Smilegate or epicseven have honestly introduced, because there's so much room for like outplaying, like comboing, like the same way that people would come up with combos like, oh guys, like guess what, like Fire Litica and like Silverblade Araminta are like super OP, or like Aram and Stray is going to like one-shot everything in the game, like Ran in Summertime Assyria. Like, these characters like obviously have clear direct synergy. While that might not necessarily be the case for someone like Rose, although I honestly I could maybe see a sort of situation where someone cooks up like a 1-to-1 synergy, this Wretched Rose character just seems so creatively like opening, or it seems so open and like versatile in terms of how you can use her, that she might actually shake things up significantly. Because again, this isn't a super heavily committing to one sort of playstyle or another. This is just, again, a dispel, like a revert back to the start of the game. And like, again, this isn't reverting the enemy team, so like, if you want to go back and like you give everyone full HP, and if I'm not mistaken, I think in theory this would give everyone back their cooldowns from the start. Like, presumably that this is how this would work. Like forget Aram's S3 cooldown resetting, right? Like, Strays just gets to S3, but so does everyone else on your team all at the same time. Like, you can kind of see, at least in my opinion, like how crazy this can be. And honestly, don't even get me started on if you end up using someone like Wretched Rose with like Lady of the Scales Mercedes or something like that, because this looks even crazier because it's so much survivability, critical hit resistance, and barrier, and healing, and reset back to the beginning. And all of a sudden, Mercedes reapplies her scales buff again to the person in the front after they've been revived. It's like, oh, it's just so psychopathic. And again, to be clear, I don't even necessarily know if time reversal bypasses things like extinction. I really would hold off until we actually see how it ends up panning out. But if this buff is as crazy as we had initially, or some people are thinking as it is, this is going to be probably one of the easiest must quote unquote must have like ML4s in the game. And honestly, that's really surprising because I haven't seen a whole lot of you know, though people obviously like the design or are interested in Rose, I haven't seen people so insanely excited about a 4-star or 4-stars in general. And this one honestly looks crazy. This is like kind of a game changer, honestly, for the 4 cost, or despite being a 4-star. In any case though, guys, that's going to be it for today's video. This is just supposed to be a brief overview. My initial thoughts for Rose are probably going to be that if you're a versatile, or if you're an endgame player who has a lot of opportunity, or if you're probably playing something like the E7 World Championship mode, this is probably going to be a character that you need to build because she just seems so clutch, honestly, is like kind of the way that I'd like to say it. Or like someone could definitely build a comp around this and kind of pop off. But otherwise, guys, if you're interested in this character, I definitely consider looking into her. If you luckily get her, I definitely test around or mess with her. If she is, or if she ends up being way worse, like Solution ends up getting like destroyed or like pincered or kind of like what is it, like restricted, and isn't as insane as this buff sounds, then like, okay, obviously you can hold off. But it is a 4 cost, or it is a 4-star, and obviously some of these buffs still seem pretty insane anyways. Like again, like being able to, you know, like being a Soul Weaver that has like, you know, or could have like 25,000 HP and then revive, while also giving critical hit resistance and also cleansing and also giving, like, these are very versatile buffs and versatile usage, or versatile like aspects of her kit, which I think will be useful. But in any case, that's going to be it for today's video. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys on the next one. Stay safe, stay healthy. Good night.